cluster of ships rides the distant horizon off the Philippines. Helicopters whirl above. Marines, sailors and soldiers move through coordinated drills on land, at sea and in the air. At first glance, it looks like a familiar exercise, routine, professional, constrained by safety procedures and codes of conduct. But the choreography has changed. The scale has changed. The company keeping watch has changed. A commentator on the scene put it plainly. That is not a training exercise. That is a statement. Those words landed because they captured how capitals across the region and beyond read what was happening, not simply maneuvers to sharpen skills, but a deliberate demonstration of partnership and resolve. Officially, the drills are Balikatan, Tagalog for shoulder to shoulder, the Philippines, long-running annual series of exercises with the United States. In 2026, Balikatan opened in late April and stretched into early May, unfolding from Luzon to Palawan between April 20 and March 8. What makes this iteration different is the company, more than 17,000 personnel from the Philippines, the United States, Japan, Australia, Canada, France and New Zealand, with observers from nearly 24 other nations. For the first time in decades, Japan's self-defense forces accepted a combat role on Philippine soil. Allies brought not only trainers and helicopters, but missiles, anti-ship systems and logistics enablers, capabilities that alter the balance of signaling in real time. Numbers matter, so do names and platforms. US officials described roughly 10,000 American personnel alongside about 5,000 Filipino troops and additional contingents from partner militaries. At sea and in the air, advanced sensors, live fire events, ship sinking exercises, and amphibious landings tested combined readiness. The exercise program reached beyond traditional domains, incorporating cyber and space resilience drills meant to protect the satellites and networks that underpin modern maritime operations. The timing was unmistakable. Across the Western Pacific, maritime pressure in the South China Sea has been intensifying. For Manila, the expanded Balikatan was both reassurance and rehearsal, a way to show its people and its neighbors that it can coordinate security options and to practice the tasks that would matter in a crisis, detecting threats, defending territory, and sustaining operations across an archipelago that stretches thousands of miles. Beijing answered in a tone that has become familiar. China's diplomat Zheng Shuang warned, "We wish to remind the countries concerned that blindly binding themselves together in the name of security will only be akin to playing with fire, ultimately backfiring upon themselves." That diplomatic framing is designed for multiple audiences: domestic Chinese publics, international audiences skeptical of alliances, and foreign capitals that fear being drawn into confrontation. It also served as a justification for Beijing to move its own ships and aircraft into parallel operating areas east of Luzon. Chinese carrier elements and modern surface combatants, including Type 055 guided missile destroyers among the region's most capable warships, were observed operating in proximity to the drills. Some pro-PAL air channels on Chinese social media even claimed the launch of long-range anti-ship weapons during those operations. Independent verification of specific launches remained limited, but the presence of significant planned formations near Balikatan was clear, and that presence reshaped the tactical picture at sea. Manila's response was blunt and public. Secretary of National Defense Gilberto Teodoro Jr., who leads the Department of National Defense, rejected Beijing's warning and the idea that the Philippines should accept limits on sovereign partnerships. He publicly mocked the notion that Manila and its partners were the reckless party, and he demanded evidence for specific Chinese allegations about inside and South Sea and maritime pollution, inviting accounting through international processes. For the Philippine government, Balikatan was not only about capability, it was a statement of agency, a demonstration that Manila can choose partnerships that strengthen deterrence and protect livelihoods. That emphasis on capability matters because the technical balance of power in these waters is shifting. Modern Chinese destroyers with long-range missile cells and advanced sensors change operational calculations in ways that are both technical and political. For a single maritime state like the Philippines, facing an opponent with far greater fleet size and reach, the temptation is to either bandwagon or to rely on asymmetric, dispersed defenses. Manila has chosen a third path: asymmetric capacity building matched to deeper alliance integration. In practical terms, that means buying deterrence through partnerships, legal positions, and interoperability that lets allied systems talk to one and not separate. are under stress. But this is not a simple story of one side building and the other backing away. The wider geopolitical backdrop complicates the calculus. A separate and violent theatre in the Middle East has demanded significant US and fixed military resources in recent months, drawing carrier groups, expeditionary forces, and missile defense assets into and around the Persian Gulf. That reality raised a strategic question for regional partners. Will the United States' attention to another front allow competition in the Indo-Pacific to intensify? The size and visibility of Balikatan was in part an answer, a public demonstration that US attention and alliance commitment remain engaged in Asia, even amid global demands. This demonstration, however, is double-edged. Visible exercises and larger allied footprints can deter some forms of coercion, but they also ratchet up the risk calculus. When both sides send ships to the same stretch of ocean and aircraft into overlapping patrol boxes, feed, E-margin for miscalculation shrinks. Live-fire events, missile tests, close carrier operations and more aggressive maneuvers increase the chance that a tactical incident, a navigation error, a misinterpreted sensor track, an unexpected weapons release could produce a crisis none of the governments wanted. The legal backdrop adds another layer of uncertainty. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the Republic of the Philippines and the United States, first signed on August 30th, 1951, remains a foundational text of the alliance. In 2026, the treaty marks its 75th year. It obliges the parties to consult and act if an armed attack occurs in the Pacific area against either party. But treaties do not make decisions. They set obligations. Political leaders must still decide whether a particular incident meets the threshold for collective action. That ambiguity is both a restraint and a potential flashpoint. It gives room for careful diplomacy, but it also opens the door to strategic misreading. G. Who interprets what is an armed attack? And how will capitals weigh domestic politics, international law, and military risk? For many regional capitals, Japan's enlarged role in this year's exercises was one of the most consequential developments. Tokyo's decision to allow its self-defense forces to take a combat role on Philippine soil for the first time since World War II reflects how far Japanese policy has shifted in response to maritime assertiveness. For Pacific partners, the presence of European and Commonwealth militaries from France, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand added not only manpower but diplomatic heft. These are not cosmetic parades of flags. They are signal multipliers. When multiple democracies train together, the operational and political consequences of escalation rise. Beijing's public framing that outside powers are stoking confrontation and bringing external forces into a regional dispute has resonance in some quarters. Great power rivalry is costly and destabilizing, and many governments worry about getting caught between two larger adversaries. Beijing is adept at casting incidents as interference by extra-regional actors. Yet that framing sits uneasily with another reality. Many Balikatan participants are littoral states, or nations with direct interest in open sea lanes, fisheries, and norms of navigation. But then the exercise is as much about protecting a rules-based order and economic lifelines as it is about countering a single country. There is a professional choreography to this contest. Public rebukes are matched by careful operational protocols at sea. Aircraft intercept are executed according to agreed procedures. Naval leaders emphasize codes of conduct and hotlines to reduce risk. Diplomats talk in public and in private. Organizers underscore that Balikatan includes humanitarian assistance and disaster relief scenarios, medical evacuation training and logistics exercises, activities as important to peacetime resilience as they are to combat preparedness. But a quieter domain of competition is growing faster than many appreciate. Cyber and space. Today, maritime surveillance, targeting, navigation and secure communications depend on satellites, long-range sensors and contested networks. Balikatan's inclusion of cyber defense and space resilience drills acknowledges that a future crisis will not be decided by guns and missiles alone. It will also be shaped by who can see clearly, who can pass orders securely, and who can deny or protect the digital and orbital infrastructure that modern forces rely on. In a crisis, disrupting a fleet's data links or blinding its surveillance constellation can be as decisive as sinking a ship. For the people who live in and around these flashpoints, the stakes are immediate and practical. In the West Philippine Sea, fisheries and livelihoods are intertwined with national pride and legal claims. Small incidents, a fishing boat turned away, a water cannon in Kappa. netter a damaged hull after a close maneuver can become national narratives. Coast Guard standoffs are often the thin edge of the wedge, and when national media run bruising images, the political pressure on leaders to respond can rise quickly. That pressure shapes choices. Visible external support can raise the cost of harassment. If Philippine assets are repeatedly targeted and outside partners demonstrate willingness to respond, Beijing may pause before escalating. But deterrence rests on psychology as much as platforms. The question that lies at the heart of these hours at sea and behind diplomatic doors is simple and consequential. Who will blink first? Blinking can happen at many levels. At the political level, capitulation or concession can shift a baseline for years. At the military level, a commander might pull back to avoid an incident, or choose to stand firm and risk a showdown. At the diplomatic level, a nation might opt for quiet talks rather than public rebukes. Each choice reshapes the risk environment for the next cycle of competition. Both sides gesture toward prudence. Organizers and allied spokespeople emphasize defensive intent and humanitarian training. Beijing emphasizes the risks of great power rivalry and calls for tranquility. Publicly, both sides claim restraint even as their movements harden the operational picture. The result is a tense choreography where professional militaries try to avoid miscalculation while building credibility through presence and practice. Near-term outlook is unsurprising, more of the same. Robust signaling accompanied by careful de-escalation at the tactical level. Ships will pass at what everyone hopes are safe distances. Aircraft will execute intercepts under agreed procedures. Diplomats will alternate public rebukes with quieter messages. Yet more of the same is not the same as safety. Rehearsals make the possibility of error real. The more forces operate closely, the larger the set of potential error real. Roars, as the drills continue, two longer-term patterns are worth watching. First, Manila's strategic choices suggest a steady move toward deeper integration with partners, legal, operational, and material cooperation intended to offset asymmetric disadvantages. Second, Beijing's emphasis on perimeter defense and rhetoric about red lines signals a readiness to contest forward presence. Those patterns intersect in the lives of ordinary people. Fishermen navigating crowded seas, coastal communities whose economies depend on steady access to fishing grounds, and families who watch with unease as warships carve the horizon. Ultimately, Balikatan is a rehearsal of choices. It is a test of whether multilateral deterrence can coexist with channels for restraint. It is a demonstration that alliance politics and the distribution of military capability still shape behavior at sea. And it is a reminder that in the modern maritime environment, peacetime posture and wartime readiness are inseparable. In the days and weeks ahead, the watch teams across multiple vessels will count hours and sea miles. Diplomatic messages will move between capitals. Public opinion will be shaped by images of ships and helicopters, by quotes and speeches, and by the small, consequential incidents that do not always make headlines. Until then, the alliance rehearses, the rivals signal, and coastal communities keep watch. Whoever blinks first at the political level, the military level, or the diplomatic level will alter the strategic baseline for the year to come. For now, the Indo-Pacific holds its breath.